All right, so the other day we had a man went to the Ohio FBI building with a nail gun, shot it. He had an AR-15 with him. He was looking like he was trying to do a mass shooting in there. He wasn't able to get through initial security, and so he ran as soon as he realized he couldn't do that. Then there was a chase with law enforcement. There was a shootout, and the guy ended up dying. That was a big story. Of course, that came right after the Trump story of the FBI raiding Trump because he had top secret of the top secret documents with him. Nuclear documents were just some of the things he had with him. And then also there were armed Trump protesters who were outside the FBI building in Phoenix. And so with all this going on now, the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security, there's an internal memo that was leaked to Ken Klippenstein here. He has good sources in there. And here's what he says. Today, the FBI and DHS issued a joint intelligence bullet warning of the potential for domestic violent extremists to carry out attacks in reaction to the FBI's recent execution of a court-authorized search warrant in Palm Beach, Florida, per internal memo I obtained. So it says, colleagues, last night the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice issued a joint intelligence bulletin, accessible via Homeland Security Information Network, providing information on the potential for domestic violent extremists to carry out attacks on federal, state, and local law enforcement and government personnel or facilities. This information is being shared in light of an increase in threats and acts of violence, including armed encounters against law enforcement, judiciary, and government personnel, in reaction to the FBI's recent execution of a court-authorized search warrant in Palm Beach, Florida. Since the search, the FBI and DHS have observed an increase in violent threats posted on social media against federal officials and facilities. Out of an abundance of caution and to ensure the safety of our workforce and the security of federal facilities, we are encouraging you to remain vigilant and aware of your surroundings and to exercise caution as you go about your daily routine. In addition, as described in the June 7th National Terrorism Advisory System Bulletin, some domestic violent extremists have expressed grievances related to the false perception that the U.S. government is not working to maintain security along the U.S.-Mexico border. So this is like right-wing conspiracy stuff here. Anyway, it goes on. You get the gist of it. Look, it's a real concern. Now, for people who would immediately make, well, the both sides argument, like, oh yeah, there's extremists on both sides. Yeah, in the wake of the George Floyd killing, you did have, there was property damage, there was riots, there was a lot of peaceful protesting, but there was also a lot of property damage in some of those riots, and that's generally the thing you see on the left when stuff happens. When you look on the right, the picture is a little bit different and a little more grim. I mean, there was a phenomenal Netflix documentary about, excuse me, the rise of right-wing extremism in the 90s. And, Ruby Ridge was one thing, the Oklahoma City bombing, David Koresh and the Branch Davidians. And there was a big explosion of that sort of stuff when Clinton was elected, which is kind of hilarious because Clinton was basically a Republican light, He was part of the New Democrats, which was third way, triangulation. Let's be like the Republicans, but we're Democrats, and let's take the corporate money, but we're Democrats. So he was, a corporate centrist, and they still viewed him as like a socialist, and they went nuts, and there was an increase in attacks. And now with the search warrant of Mar-a-Lago, a lot of these people are losing it, and it's a scary situation, to say the least. And remember, they really did make every accommodation they possibly could, the FBI, when dealing with Trump here, because they went and asked him politely, hey, can we have those documents? You can't have those. Those are not just classified and top secret, they're the top secret of the top secret. I mean, you got nuclear documents and things of that nature, literally things that you cannot see outside of a secure facility Trump had with him. Crazy, right? He said he handed it all over, but he didn't. He lied, and they knew he lied. So they had to do the search warrant, and they still coordinated with him and let him be out of town when they did it. And he still tried to use this as a political weapon against them. So, and now we're seeing the results of that. More threats, some active shooter situations. And this just give everybody a little bit of a background, man. What we're dealing with here. I'm sure you guys have seen the numbers. We've covered the numbers, the official statistics that show there's a lot of right-wing terror. Relatively speaking, all sorts of terrorism is generally, kind of low, but there is a significant chunk of that is right-wing terror. So anyway, here's a video from a few years back that talks about this exact problem.
Folks on the right have extremely short memories when it comes to acts of right-wing political violence. Jim David Atkinson, author of a manifesto urging violent war against liberals, opens fire inside a Knoxville, Tennessee Unitarian church during...
Just so you know, a Unitarian Universalist church is a very, very lefty kind of church.
The youth performance of a musical, killing 2 and wounding 7. He tells investigators that all liberals should be killed. Keith Luke of Brockton, Massachusetts, who is a neo-Nazi, kills 2 and injures another in a rape and murder spree targeting non-white people. He is halted before reaching a synagogue and later convicted of murder. Danny Roy Baker, Miramar Beach, Florida, who is a former GOP volunteer angry about immigration, opens fire on a room full of Chilean exchange students, killing 2.
You can see it's like a smorgasbord of issues, you know? It's all these various far-right issues that they're doing it over.
During 3, he pleads no contest to murder. Richard Poplawski of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a white supremacist, fearful of a plot by President Obama to take his guns, kills 3 police officers and leaves 2 others injured in a standoff at his home.
I always wonder how these people grasp with the fact that he didn't do that. I said the same thing about Alex Jones with this trial, because his take on Sandy Hook was like, look, it could be a hoax from the government because they want to come take your guns. But he didn't do that. So now do you look and say, my whole motive collapses, so I was wrong? I mean, he said, to be fair, he says, you know, I apologize and I was wrong, but he never goes that extra step and says, like, yeah, the core of it, that they're going to take the guns. Obama didn't do that at all. So maybe he's not what I was portraying him as.
Poplawski is later convicted of murder. James von Brunn of Washington, D.C., a neo-Nazi, walks into the U.S. Holocaust Museum and opens fire, killing a black guard. He dies while awaiting trial on murder and hate crime charges. Ross William Muehlberger of Wichita Falls, Texas, yells white power as he shoots up a cafe, injuring 4 black and Latino women and killing 1 white bartender before killing himself. David Joey Peterson, white supremacist, embarks on a killing spree across Oregon and California with...
Was that a white supremacist tattoo he had tattooed on him? I don't know.
Holly Grigsby, his girlfriend, with the aim of killing Jews and black people and targeting Jewish organizations. They kill Peterson's father and stepmother and 2 people who offer to give
Jesus, that's dark.
the couple rides. Both plead guilty to murder. Wade Michael Page, Oak Creek, Wisconsin, a member of the neo-Nazi Hammerskin Nation, kills...
I remember covering this one. This is the Sikh temple, right?
6 and wounds 4 during a shooting rampage in a Sikh temple before killing himself. Fraser Glenn Miller Jr. of Oberlin Park, Kansas, a former Grand Dragon of the Carolina Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, embarks on a shooting rampage at 2 Jewish community institutions, killing 3. He's found guilty of capital murder. Elliot Roger, the child of a Hollywood producer, who was on a killing rampage near the Cal Santa Barbara campus, targeting women after leaving a misogynist video explaining his actions. He kills 6 people and injures 14 before killing himself. Jared and Amanda Miller, married Patriot Movement sympathizers, go on a shooting rampage that kills 3 people, including 2 police officers. Dylan Roof, a white supremacist radicalized online, joins a Bible study at the Emmanuel AME Church and opens fire, killing 9 and wounding another. He is convicted on 33 counts, including murder. John Russell Hauser of Lafayette, Louisiana, enters a movie...
By the way, at the end of this, he does bring up the left-wing cases he could find, just so everybody, you know, hang tight for that.
Theater with a gun, killing 2 and wounding 9 before killing himself. Investigators find he praised Roof and urged readers of his manifesto to target liberals for mass murder. Alan Lawrence Scarcella, a white supremacist who had been infiltrating and filming Black Lives Matter protests, shoots and wounds 5 protesters at a BLM protest.
Did these people even realize that, like, dog, you wouldn't have even been considered white not that long ago? Your last name's Scarcella. That's Italian as fuck. Like... Irish people weren't considered fully white. Italian people weren't considered fully white. The goalposts on this stuff have moved so much over the years. Does he even realize that?
Outside of a Minneapolis police station, Scarcella is found guilty of felony riot and assault charges. Jeremy Christian, who had participated in local alt-right rallies, begins harassing 2 Muslim women on a Portland commuter train. When 3 men intervene, he stabs all 3 of them, 2 fatally. At his arraignment, he declares he is standing up for free speech.
Oh, man. Jesus Christ. I don't know how they don't get the irony, man. I'm standing up for free speech by murdering? Like what? Whatever I do is free speech. Whatever you do is against free speech. What?
James Field Jr. spends the day at Charlottesville participating in the violent Unite the Right protests between white nationalists and counter-protesters, after which he drives a Dodge Challenger at high speed into a crowd of the latter, killing 32-year-old Heather Heyer and injuring 28 people. He later is convicted of first-degree murder. This list is, in fact, terribly incomplete. Between 2008 and 2016, a database I helped create found that right-wing extremists committed 115 acts of domestic terrorism, resulting in 79 deaths and over 100 injuries. And that's just in the United States.
So remember, this is from 2 or 3 years back, too.
And moreover, since 2016, the rate of such terrorism has in fact increased, embodied by such cases as the Fields and Christian murders. Now, there are 3 incidents of left-wing violence that stand out in this regard. The first is Floyd Corkins' shooting of a guard at the Family Research Council in 2012. No one was killed, but 3 were injured.
I remember when that happened.
The second happened in July 2016 when Micah Xavier Johnson, an Afghan war veteran, opened sniper fire on Dallas police during a Black Lives Matter protest, killing
I remember that too.
5 officers and wounding 9. The third is James Hodgkinson's shooting of congressmen and staff in June 2017 during a softball
It's the Steve Scalise shooting.
practice in Washington, D.C., which left Representative Steve Scalise seriously injured along with 3 others. These are the only 3 such incidents I can find involving lethal leftist violence on right-wing or other political targets. However, when it comes to a propensity for actual political violence directed at their opponents or at victims they have targeted for various reasons, there really is a huge difference.
I mean, he's just spitting facts, right? He's just spitting facts. I mean, so anyway, I think it's a reasonable concern that there might be an uptick in right-wing violence. I think that's a reasonable concern. We've already seen one thing since the warrant at Mar-a-Lago. Look, the other scary thought is it almost doesn't matter what specifically they get Trump for, because he's committed a zillion crimes. You guys know that if you're regular viewers of this show. Even if they get him on the most airtight shit imaginable, and it's so obvious he did it, man, there's going to be that tiny percentage of the population. So Trump has like a 30% block that'll never leave him and love him. But of those, maybe a fraction of a percent or 0.5% are prone to like real violence. But that's millions of people, dog. That's millions of people. And so even if they dot their I's and cross their T's and do all the right things, there's going to be some percentage that still flips out, and there's still going to be an increase in right-wing terror. Definitely. Definitely. Now, by the way, I am not making that point to then say, well, you can't go after him. Because then what you're saying is as long as somebody has a passionate following, you should never find them guilty of any crimes. That's fucking psycho stuff. Of course you should. Of course you should find them guilty. Justice needs to be blind. But it's just a warning. Like, it might be coming. It almost certainly is coming. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.